All right, we'll give it just about another minute before we get started. It's about 5:59 now, so. All right, it's 6 o'clock. And want to be very mindful of everyone's time because I know you're taking time out of your busy schedules to do this. And so thank you all for being here, and hopefully we'll get through this without any technical glitches. I apologize in advance if that does come up. This is the first time that we are trying this kind of virtual town hall setting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Let's see. Okay. And all right. Well, good evening, and again, thank you all for joining us here tonight. I'm Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. Just a little bit about me, and then we'll get into the presentation, and if you have any questions, we'll take those up at the end. But as we go, and I'll touch on this in a minute, but as we go, if you do have questions that you think of during the presentation, just put them in the chat box. And at the end, what I'll do is I'll go through those in the order that they were received, and we'll answer those. We do have the engineer team here, as you probably saw in the pictures in the beginning, on standby. So they're here and ready to answer questions tonight. So, like I said, I'm Liz Elliott. I started here as the director just 6 months ago, days before the pandemic hit our community. Although I'm new to LTU, I'm not new to the city. Prior to taking this position, I worked in the city attorney's office as an assistant city attorney, where I handled complex litigation, tort claims, and contract issues for all city departments. Then at the beginning of this year, I had an amazing opportunity to become part of the LTU team, which I excitedly jumped at the chance to do. And here at LTU, I'm blessed to work with the opportunity to work with a great team and contribute towards something greater than myself. The LTU department is a highly collaborative environment that plays a vital role in supporting the quality life in our community. The services that LTU provides touches every aspect of people's lives, from our sewer and water systems to public transportation such as buses and electric scooters to our streets. And I believe that for us to provide high quality services and value to the community, that we need to be fully engaged with our community. And one of my top goals as director here at LTU is to enhance our communication with the public. A few initial steps that we've taken towards this goal are that we are much more active on social media so that everyone has timely updates on important projects. We're also reevaluating our website and updating it more frequently to bring you updates on project status, budget issues, those types of things. And we're developing thorough plans to keep the public more in tune with projects that affect your day-to-day lives. One of those areas are these virtual town halls that we're starting to try out to see if this is a way that we can reach the public in the pandemic, but also if there are ways to continue to use this to reach even more people under normal circumstances. I do want to take a moment just to thank everyone on this virtual meeting tonight. We appreciate you giving us an hour of your time tonight to learn more about this project. And more than that, I want to thank you for your patience regarding these two West A improvement projects. I know that construction is a frustrating process, but the end result of all of this work and the frustration really will be a huge improvement, and one that everyone will be able to appreciate once it's all done. So I hope that you'll find this meeting tonight valuable. I hope that you have some of your questions answered before you leave here tonight. But what we want to talk to you tonight, we'll walk through a number of, walk you through the project and cover a number of topics. So what we'll do is we'll start tonight with a review of the project, what has been completed, what's underway, and what's to come. We will also update you on what to expect moving forward as we kind of take you through the timeline. And then at the end of the presentation, we will go through any questions that you may have. Like I said, if you have a question during the presentation, you can simply type that into the chat box, the button kind of below on the lower part of your screen. You can just type your questions into that. We will go through each question at the end of the presentation, and we'll try and answer them in the order that we received. If you emailed questions to us before tonight's presentation, we will then do those after we get through the chat questions. So with that, I will turn this over to Assistant City Engineer Thomas Schaefer to take us through the project. Thomas.
Thank you, Director. I'm excited to get to, I guess, say I was there when we did our first town hall virtually. So this is exciting to try out. I'm even more excited the fact that we've been able to get to this project and we're into the phase of construction. It seems like it's been a long time coming for some folks. You know, I've got a daughter who's just turned 16, but we've spent a lot of time down at the soccer fields. I can think of actually before that, when I was in college, going to Pioneers Park and hanging out here. And, you know, it's even exciting to, you know, as we've gone through, as I've looked through the names, I see some names that I recognize of folks that I've worked with out here on this. So it's always good to see us be able to improve the transportation system around our community and know that we're all going to get the good use out of it when it's completed. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their attendance tonight. I want to thank them for their patience that they've exhibited throughout this process, and just go over a few of the things and remind us what we're getting out of this project when we're done. When we're done with this project, we're going to see a safer transportation system that we're providing for not just the traffic that drives on the road, but all forms of traffic, transportation out here, whether that's the pets and bikes people, even the transit users will see improvements because of this project. I'm happy to say that we're going to be adding several roundabouts to this corridor. And these offer a lot quicker movement through intersections, are a lot safer, and so those are exciting. We're going to have with those PED improvements ADA compliance, which stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. And you'll see a lot of the ramps that we've been putting in and the detectable warning panels and things like that. Also out here, you're going to see a more reliable utility system, and the fact that many of the electrical lines and telecommunications are going underground. That should help them be more resistant during storms. You don't have to worry about a tree taking down a line. You don't have to worry about ice snapping lines. Those things will be improved as well. We're also doing the water and wastewater out here as well in some replacement projects and getting that freshened up. You know, we've got a lot of drainage issues that have been going on out here that have been addressed with various things. We're hoping this is the last item that'll help with the stormwater issues that we've had out here. And then finally, not just a commuter experience, but just any user, we want to have a positive experience that they get out of this as they come. So those are the things that we were talking about, maybe to remind us of what all this project is. We're going to talk tonight about a Project A and a Project B. I know that can get confusing because sometimes then even on our sub-projects, we talk about phasing A and B. And so we're going to start with on the left-hand side, that's the West City limits. That's out by Southwest 36. And clear on the right side, when we're done with this, is over at Southwest 5th. So this is a long project. This is way over a mile. And as such, we had to split it into two. So let's look at the first piece. The first piece is the piece that we've got under construction right now. That goes from the Southwest 5th and extends west past Coddington to about Southwest 23rd. And then we have the east half that we're working on design and the right-of-way on, and that starts at Southwest 23rd, where this project leaves off and continues out to our West City limits, which will be around, like I said, Southwest 36. So when we take on a project like this, a lot of times the focus is on the finished product, which is the improved roadway surfacing and convenience and safety that comes with it. But just a reminder of what goes into the transportation side of a project like this. We have surveying that we do. We have traffic analysis that we do. We look at different alternatives for how we handle traffic at intersections, how we handle it at access points, how we handle it just even in the straight line road, whether we're going to put a median in between the opposing lanes or whether that's not needed, whether we're going to have curbs, whether we're not going to have curbs. We do a lot of design. We have to do environmental review. We have to meet different permitting agencies' requirements. And those are all things that are part of the transportation piece of a project. So with that, we have some examples here. In case you haven't had a chance to see some of this in person, we have that was subgrade. This is actually how subgrade with those baskets on it of bars, and then we pave over that. And you can see the Russ's Market in the background and the shopping center. So this is some of the Coddington work that's been recently completed. This is another stretch, I believe, on West A. No, maybe this is Coddington as well. Mixed up on my pictures, but that, like I said, is the important part that we drive on. But there's a lot of things that go into this before we can get there, such as how do we keep traffic moving during construction. While some ways it's simpler and easier just to close the road down, we know that's not always possible. It's not always the way we can accommodate things. So we put temporary pavement in as a measure to allow people to still utilize and get to places they need to get to while we're in construction. We talked about roundabouts. I wanted to mention on this project A that we're talking about, there are two roundabouts. There's one at Coddington, but there's also one that will replace the stop control on Folsom. And then in Project B, we have three roundabouts that were originally proposed. And I'm happy to report that we've got a fourth one coming in as part of planned development on the north side, north side of West A. There's some new housing being developed and proposed out there, and we're going to get a better access point out there than we've had before. These other ones are at Southwest 27th, Southwest 31st, and Southwest 24th. So when we talk about the accessible sidewalks, meeting the Americans with Disabilities Act criteria, this is examples of some of that, where we're putting curb ramps in for better transitions for crossings, detectable warning panels, which are out there. You can see the 3 bars in the one picture on your left. That's because occasionally vehicles off track and get on those, so we need to beef those up. We're just not pouring sidewalk like you might have like leading from your driveway to your house. We have to actually put almost pavement rated concrete in there and design it like it's going to take a load from a vehicle. Also with this project, new driveway connections, we're doing a lot of paving of allowing private improvements to access the private property with that, both commercially and residentially. And with that comes things that we do in concert with homeowners. Sometimes what we do and what we try to do is we try to minimize this disruption to homeowners, where we may pour like a wider driveway like seen there half at a time so they can still utilize it. Doesn't always work, but that's one of the things we do. One of the other things that we may do, a lot of times you have to lower the sidewalk in the area of these curb ramps because there's maximum slopes that you can't exceed. And a lot of times the surrounding grade is not low enough or not as low as what the sidewalk once was. So we build retaining walls so we don't have to tear up as much of people's yards as we need to, or we try to minimize the amount that we tear up with people's yards. We talked about some of the improvements that are going to come to the transit users. For instance, this is just on the north side of the shopping center. This is a turnout for the bus stop. You can see there's extra concrete so the bus can get out of the way of the through lane. Allows it to be safer. You can see the sidewalk is extended over to the curb so that folks are able to get from the sidewalk onto the bus without having to track through grass or mud. They're able to enter the bus at that location. And I don't have a picture of it in yet because we haven't been able to put it in. That'll be coming later. But there's going to be a future multi-use trail. The white arrows kind of show the location. This is a panoramic view of coming soon. Something that we're going to be able to give to the neighborhood that really hasn't had a good pedestrian route along A Street. So we talked a little bit about the transportation stuff and some of the things that you'll see on top of this roadway when we're done. But a lot of times, because it happens while the road's closed and because it happens underground, we don't always get to see the things that are going to be a part of a project that helps improve it. We talked about new electrical lines that are going to be buried, helping them stay out of windstorms, ice storms, falling trees, those sorts of things. We've got some fiber and telecommunications that are also coming off of those poles and going underground. That will provide more reliability for those systems. And since they're going to be new wires, hopefully better connections so that when we hold town halls like this, you'll be able to connect into us in a better manner. Also, stormwater drainage system. We've been doing a lot of work and improvements on that with this project as well. Also, water main upgrades and storms or sanitary sewer replacement is happening. One of the things about sanitary sewer sometimes that people don't realize is how deep it has to be. I think I've got a note in an upcoming slide that says that it's 25 feet deep. And if you think about that, that's probably a 2-story house into the ground is how deep that is. So there's a picture of some of the utility relocation that's been coming. You can see where they're working to get lines off of poles. With this project, there'll be a new and upgraded street lighting. Here's an example of the size and scale of some of those stormwater drainage improvements that you can see. Those are some pretty big pipes. They come into junction boxes that you can see quite large, taller than that gentleman is tall, and wider than he would be if he laid down a couple of times. So we're really providing for a large storm event with this. Here's some pictures of the water main replacement that's been going in. New hydrants there, you can see on the right side. Here's some examples of the wastewater replacement. I talked about some of the things we do in the construction to kind of try to help accommodate people that are working and living in the area. And this is one of them. When we're working in wastewater, you can't just plug up the pipe and stop it. It's got to flow somewhere. And so in this case, we're actually pumping it out at manholes, bypassing down to the next manhole so we can work on the stretch in between the two manholes. And so that's what we're doing in this case, so that we're not having people have to, not use the facilities, that they're able to continue to use your utilities, whether that's water or wastewater, without hopefully too much disruption in service by doing accommodations like pumping it over land. So this has been, it's a project. Every project's different. Every project's unique, and every project has its own set of unique challenges. In this case, this is a long project that's covering a lot of ground. So long, in fact, that it takes 2 projects to do this. And what we've been talking about with Project A is going to be different than what happens with Project B. Yeah, there'll be a lot of similarities. There'll be a lot of overlap. But, Project A is a much tighter corridor than Project B. Project A, we didn't have maybe some of the luxury to make some of the changes that we're going to be able to do on B. One of the other things that happens on nearly every project, and it's always a guess how long it's going to take you or what you're going to have, is what are you going to find when you get underground. Many of these things have been out here in the neighborhood for a long time, decades, and you can make assumptions of what you're going to find. You can even have records that show what you're supposed to find, but until you actually dig it up and expose it, you don't know what you're going to find. And when we find things that we don't expect, sometimes we're prepared for it, and sometimes we're not prepared, and it can really change our construction schedule based on what it is we find and what we have to do in order to make it work. So both projects have had challenges. I think one of the 3 of them that I want to highlight, there are several things that affect projects and their schedules, but 3 I just want to kind of highlight for folks that maybe they don't typically think about is, one, the right-of-way and easement process. Right-of-ways when we purchase property permanently to be city property. Easements are when we rent it or when we it allows us to use it, but we don't actually own it. Sometimes that's temporary. Sometimes that's a permanent easement. But we need those things to either construct the property or the improvement. It's sometimes so we can grade and get a good transition between our property and the private property, or sometimes, in the case of stormwater, it's so we can temporarily store stormwater on a location until we can get it handled with a detention type situation. But typically, that's going to take a year plus or minus to complete. I would say in this case, it's been plus a year for a lot of our things. We've had just a lot of challenges in terms of being able to secure all the right-of-way. Another challenge is these utilities that we talked about. We see a variety of issues both above and below ground that we need to get resolved before some of these other goals can get moved. And, while we know that we have a deep excavation and it's going to take us 20 25 feet down into the ground to get the wastewater installed correctly. Sometimes not knowing how the soil's going to behave doesn't give you a good idea, or you can't guess how you're going to be able to construct it. You may have to go back and put extra shoring. You may have to bench it in a different way than you thought, and that slows the process down. One of the other things that has certainly affected us and changed how we've been able to do some things is the pandemic. Whether that's being able to meet people to buy right away, whether that's been construction crews who have to also stay farther apart. So sometimes they're not as productive and effective as they'd like to be. In one case here on this project, we had to leave for a while. The crew had to leave because they were all exposed. And so that, really slowed us down when you don't have anybody that can be on the site because the entire crew's out. So all three of those things have created issues and challenges that have, maybe hampered our ability to move as fast as we'd like. And I just want to talk about that right-of-way process. It's not quite the same for the city to buy property as maybe me as a private property owner. I noticed the other day a sign go up in a neighbor's yard and for sale, and within the end of the week it said sold. But it still is taking them time before the new owners can move in. And that's kind of the way it works for our right-of-way and easement acquisition. We have to first identify what the project's going to need. Then we have to go out and research the ownership of that property. Not everything is a clear cut who owns it. Things set in trusts, things set in with multiple owners. So we have to find out who the real owner is on there. We have to appraise it for its fair market value. And we're going to try to meet with the property owner to learn about the property, to see what we don't know. What's underground at that property? Are there sprinklers there? Are there other things that we don't know about? Not typically on a residential, but sometimes in commercial, there's geothermal wells that you have to take into account when you're talking about these things. And I'm going to say, we're meeting with the property owner, but COVID slowed us down in being able to do that. Then because as a kind of a check and balance to this system, we have to give those appraisals to an independent appraiser, someone who's not associated with this project, someone who's not part of this team, who takes a look and makes sure what was done is fair, is right, and follows the rules. So after that independent appraiser has reviewed that and made sure that we did that correctly, then we can go back with this is a third independent person who's going to meet with the property owner on that. So that system is set up to make sure that we're giving the property owner fair, transparent, and an open process as we buy right away or easement from them. There's three independent and all separate people who work on this to help determine what the value is. And then after that, we got to give someone time to consider that offer. We don't typically give it to people and ask for an answer the next day. They need time to do research. They may need time to look in and see how this is affecting them and what's the fair market value of that sort of an item. And then we, end up in a negotiation period of time where we're talking back and forth about, have you considered this? Have you considered that sort of thing? And then we get to a closing. So all those things take time. We, like I said, guess and think that it takes generally a year. Sometimes it takes longer. And in this particular case, it seems to be taking longer on average. All right, so you can see a little bit of a picture there of a lot of what's underground. I like to say sometimes there's more to the street than meets the eye, and if you could ever really look at it underground, you would be probably pretty surprised as to all the things that are under there. And like we mentioned, these could have been in place for decades. And And these sorts of things create issues to where some of the utility companies have not been able to, complete their relocation work. I think some of the telecommunications companies have been working to upgrade networks. They've been seeing a lot more traffic with the pandemic, and so that that's their highest calling is to their customers, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep things in service, things that maybe in the past they could take out of service because they had enough spare capacity in their network to handle. They're needing to keep in place longer. So we haven't gotten all the relocation work done in the manner that we hoped in the time we had. This required us to change the order of construction. I know we have met with you guys earlier and had some guesses about how it was going to work out, and we've had to make changes based on some of these things. And so when we talk about the pandemic, we talked a little bit about crews not being on job, but even when they are on the job, if they have to stay farther apart, they try to social distance and be 6 feet apart. That has lessened productivity. When a material supplier comes on board, they may not be able to touch certain things on the vehicle delivering that because they're trying to keep the spread away. So they may not be able to help a truck driver unload something. That has to happen with that. So even, just material acquisition has been different in the pandemic. We also know in some cases things that we were hoping to get, factories were shut down. So materials were not able to even be delivered to the site in a timely manner because factories got shut down because of COVID issues. So this is something probably pretty new to most folks here tonight, and that is the additional roundabout that is being proposed at Southwest 36th and West A. As we've been going through this process, we learned of a new housing plan proposed north of West A. We started looking at the places that made sense for access, things that would allow West A to have a long life and not be chopped up with lots of access points, and how we could handle it the best way that we could. And we came to the conclusion that we needed to put a roundabout in at West A. So this is a drawing of it. We're still working on final details. We're still working on designs. We're still working on a lot of pieces of it. But this is something new that's going to be added to Project B as we go forward. So if you haven't heard officially, let this be the time that we're shooting for the end of summer 2021 to finish the Project A, the project that's under construction that we're talking about now. That's when vehicles will be able to use the street. We still might be out there during the fall, but that would be to do seating, to do some sidewalk installation, maybe finish up some poles for the street lights, things like that. And because of that, we didn't think it was right to burden this area with two projects at the same time. So we have pushed the start of the Project B to next spring, two springs, in spring of easy for me to say, spring of 2022 instead of spring of 2021. And so we hope by doing this, not only are we not burdening the neighborhood with two projects that are going on at the same time, but we'll be able to do some of those things that maybe are causing us fits with construction, and that maybe sometime in 2021, some of this utility relocations will get started early, that we'll have all of our right-of-way completed ahead of time. And so we won't have to redo our construction schedule because we'll have everything in place. So that is our goal with that. So about right now, I took a couple of pictures of the project team as we talked about some of the challenges and where we were going to be. When we realized we were going to have to do that, I think this is a picture Erica took of me and maybe the director here as we thought about this. I just want you to know that this isn't pleasant news. It's something that we take seriously. We don't like this any more than you guys do because, you know, it's our Lincoln. We're a part of it, and we don't like disappointing folks when we do that. So I'm bummed. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you're a cat person, you can go with Grumpy Cat. If you're a dog person, you can I'd probably identify with Mr. Bulldog there. Well, let's talk about what has gotten done out there, what is going on. Like I said, I don't know that everybody has a chance to see a project and know what's going on or what's happened. We have recently completed all the driveway accesses for the residents on the north side of A. We paved the access and entryways between Southwest 17th over to the US 77 bridge. And this week, we're beginning construction on the south or the west half of Coddington. And since, you know, we're all excited because football is coming back to the Huskers, with the Huskers, we took some of our progress and converted it to football fields. So far on this project, we have put about 22 football fields of concrete. And I can tell you we have several more football fields to put down, but we have gotten a significant number down. If you took our storm sewer and you lined it up, we've done 10 football fields in length of storm sewer. I want you to note that's only 60% complete, so there's still some more coming. We've got a lot done. Water main, we've got about 30% of that done. That's about 4 football fields. And so far, that deep 20 to 25 foot sanitary sewer we've been talking about, we've been able to do 8 football fields, and it's 8 football fields that are 2 stories down. So where are we at? We're making significant progress on B as well. We talked about the decision's been made to add that roundabout at Southwest 36th and West A. So that's a good milestone that decision's been made. Now we can get to the final design and work through that. We're going to continue to work through right-of-way process on that. You know, these are requirements that we have to do. So we're going to do it right. We're not going to shortcut it. We're going to be working on that. And we're talking to the utility companies about their designs and about their schedule and what can be done to help them move things along. So what's coming up in a more immediate fashion that you need to be aware of as a driver and a user out here is be prepared. We're getting ready to do some shift in traffic. Probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks here, you're going to see some things happening. You're going to see the traffic signal at West A and Coddington get removed. It's going to turn to stop sign control on that, but not everything will be all directions will be accommodated, able to be accommodated. If you are traveling east of Coddington, you'll only be able to go eastbound during that time. So folks will be able to come up Coddington and make a right turn and go east on Coddington, or east on West A. So that's going to be one pattern of travel. I know it's westbound right now, but that'll be switching to eastbound. So keep that in mind. Watch for the signs. Watch for the changes. West of Coddington, it's going to be westbound only. And, you know, why are we doing that? Well, we couldn't accommodate two-way traffic. There just was not enough room to do that. It wasn't safe to do that. So for the safety of the traveling public, that's why we're still allowing some sorts of access, but we couldn't allow both ways. This is so that we can get the sanitary sewer across the Coddington roadway. And it also allows us to start beginning work on the south side of West A. So we talked about being done for the most part on the north side. Now we're going to be on the south side getting it completed. I just want to reach out and say, we'd like to try to assist you where we can. We're going to try, if we can, to ease the inconveniences that we're having. whether that's building temporary traffic accommodation, like those lanes we showed. We're going to open to traffic just as soon as we can when it's available. And just because you see the concrete down on the road doesn't mean maybe it's ready to have cars on it. So that's one thing. Sometimes we can't let people on it because we don't have it marked correctly yet, or we don't have the lighting in yet. But we're going to do it as just as quick as we can because we want you driving on the new road. We'd rather have it used than just sitting there. And then also, we've been working with StarTran and their bus system and how to get routing through this construction time, because we know that's changing some of the users who are using out there. So we're anxious to, or we're hopeful to work with them as well. What else can you expect from us? Well, you can expect that we're going to increase our communications on this. We have 2 more meetings that we have planned for this. If this goes well tonight, we will probably do at least the March one in virtual, maybe the June one, depending on how things go. We have a unified website now with all of the information in one location. So please go to lincoln.ne.gov, search West A to stay up to date. And then we're going to try to do some quick hitting progress updates on your Facebook page. I know you guys have a lot of folks that utilize that page. And so we're going to try from time to time to keep updates or feed updates to that as well. I forget, is this still my slide or is this yours, Liz?
This one is mine. So
Okay.
thank you, Thomas, for walking us through all of that. And again, thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us for this virtual meeting. And although we've run into a few challenges, we have made a lot of progress so far. May not feel like that on some days, but I do promise that we are working as fast as we can because we do want this project done just as fast as you do. This project has been unique and once completed will offer an enjoyable commute and additional recreation opportunities for this growing area of Lincoln. And as Thomas was mentioning some of the updated communications, you can follow us. The city LTU has a unified social media site. So you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. And we will continue to provide updates there. So with that, it is now time for questions. And let me see if I can. So as we go through this, you can continue to write your questions in the chat box on below. You can also email questions to Erica Hill, our Public Information Officer, and she will go ahead and coordinate the responses between the engineers on anything if a question comes up after we are done here this evening. So before we get into the questions in the chat box, I'll give you guys a few minutes to finish out any questions that you might have. I want to go through just a couple questions with you, Thomas, that we frequently are getting. So the first frequent question that we get is, why are you working on other projects at the same time as this project? Why not designate your entire crew to this one project to get it done?
Well, we have actually, I say we, the contractor, we set a completion date with the contractor. The contractor is responsible for hitting that. And on this project, though, we do note that this contractor has had 5 to 7 crews on site through most of this project. Like I said, 5 to 7. They talked about 5, and they brought in extra crews up to 7 to do this work. And the other thing I might point out is, if 5 to 7 crews are getting it done this fast, wouldn't 10 to 14 go even faster? Well, not necessarily. We still have to balance the availability of materials and resources, social distancing, what our suppliers can do, and just is there enough elbow room to work on that? Especially like with a wastewater pipe, you need to put that in one piece at a time, and it's got to start at the lowest point and work its way up. You don't take and just start wastewater in the middle of somewhere and build it down to your outlet and up. That's how you get a dip. That's how you get things that don't work very well. So that's some of the things that keep us from being able to put just hundreds of people on a job.
Well, let me take that a step farther. Why don't you have crews work during the night?
Well, we don't want to inconvenience the neighbors around here. That's typically, I would say, most people that say, why don't you work 24 hours a day, don't live next to a construction site. And they're not the ones that are going to be losing sleep and hearing that construction equipment. So, we need to make sure that the neighborhoods being able to get their best night of sleep they can. Also, there's just a lack of what I'm going to say skilled workers in our labor pool right now, and that affects the ability to do round-the-clock work because there's just not enough people to do that. Not only that, but the simple answer is they're cheaper and safer. If I were to come to you as director and say I found something that costs less, is safer, and actually gets more traffic through it, you'd probably give me Employee of the Month for that. And so I wish I'd thought of roundabouts, but I'm a big believer in them. At Coddington and West A, or Folsom and West A, where we have that four-way stop sign, a roundabout will get 400 more vehicles through in an hour than that four-way stop sign would. We saw that's if you're a fan of Mythbusters, they did that. They did an actual demonstration of it. Crashes, when we did our first roundabout at 33rd and Sheridan, we saw that it reduced crashes by 83%. It reduced our severe injury type crashes by 95%. And the cost of property damage at that crashes went down by $800,000. So not only are they cheaper for us to build, they're better for the community. Less crashes means lower insurance rates. Less injury time means that people aren't missing work and they're able to be productive in the community. So all of those things are reasons why we're doing roundabouts. And last but not least is the reason that, when cars aren't stopped and idling, we're not burning gas and letting off emissions that we don't want to have.
Okay, those take care of our frequently asked questions. So I'm going to go and turn to the chat box. And the first question that we have this evening is, why does the one-way westward direction on West A have to change to eastward? Can't the West A lanes just shift to the north or south sides depending on the street work underway rather than changing the direction and confuse people?
Well, we think that this is the best way to accommodate the overall traffic patterns out there in the area, and having that ability to travel south up Coddington and make that right-hand turn onto A and travel on out to the best way to handle things at this point.
All right. Second question. Well, I don't know if we have our wastewater people on here, but how do you clean manhole work, and how are they maintained?
How to clean? Okay, well, they have I guess I'll answer in what I do know about manholes. They have a jet truck that comes out and jets water through those manholes to keep them clean, and they typically will come through on a regular maintenance period to do that. I'm not sure what that regular period is, how often they do that. I think they also, like anything, some systems have good stretches and stretches that don't perform as well, or maybe have different types of waste so that they need cleaned more frequently. So I know there are places they clean more frequently and places they can extend and go farther apart.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Technical difficulties. Sorry, I thought it might be easier to stop share so we can see all of everyone here. So if some of the other engineers want to chime in on any of these questions, we can see. Okay, so the next question that we have is, originally it was mentioned that we would get frequent updates via social media. Many of us are members of the K2 Construction West A Street Roadway Improvement Project Facebook group. We were promised weekly updates, and that just hasn't happened. Katie Miller has left K2, and there have been no updates since she left. It would be helpful if we got weekly updates about what is going on, and if we don't get weekly updates, who can we talk to at LTU to ensure they continue?
So the K2 construction was privately maintained by K2. It was separate from the city of Lincoln. I think what we just mentioned is that Erica will be working with us. I don't know that we'll be able to do weekly, but we have committed to doing more often updates on both our webpage and through the social media. I don't know, Erica, do you want to chime in on this?
You might want to come over here. As Erica comes over here, I did share my screen here. As was mentioned earlier, if you go to the keyword search, this is the city main page, lincoln.ne.gov. You come over here to the keyword search on the left-hand side, type in West A, hit enter, and it will take you to this new website that we have recently been updating. So you will find updates on here. And like tonight, we've got the meeting for tonight, the YouTube where you can find it, and then it goes down into the current construction, the project overview, and then some additional contact information as well.
And the entire website should be updated by the end of the night. And then when it comes to just regular updates on social media, we actually just hired someone who will really be focusing on doing a lot of just updates on projects regarding just general updates as those projects progress. And so those will be pushed out on social media as well. And then we are developing contacts for a lot of the different neighborhood associations, including West A, and we'll continue to post those. We're hoping to post West A updates every couple of months is kind of what our original plan is.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you all. Next question is, will the poles and wires on the south side of the street from the overpass to Coddington be replaced with underground facilities?
I'm going to look at my project team to see if they know, because I do not know off the top of my head the exact extent of all of that.
And if we don't have the information available tonight, we will send that out and make sure that everyone has that available as well.
So those utilities on the south side between Coddington and Highway 77 will remain. I think those poles may be relocated just to accommodate the wider roadway and sidewalk, but they will not be put underground.
Thank you, Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
What data, next question, what data has been utilized to analyze the use and effectiveness of roundabouts? And I know, Thomas, you gave us a little bit of facts. Is that just based on our own personal knowledge, or is there science to back this up?
Well, the stuff that we did at Sheridan is real. It's not made up, and it's actually not anecdotal, because if you go to our website, which Liz just showed you, and you actually type the word roundabout in, it'll take you to a page on roundabouts. One of the studies that we've used is the National Institute for Highway Safety. They did studies nationwide that showed similar numbers to what I just stated to you. Also, K-State. K-State has done lots of studies on roundabouts. So where it says roundabouts are being used to improve safety, the improved safety will take you to the data that the National Institute for Highway Safety has. The increased intersection capacity and efficiency comes from K-State. So those are two off the top of my head that I can think of data that we've used when we're making these decisions.
Again, that's just going here. I used traffic. It goes to the traffic page, and right in the center of the page is the roundabouts location.
Yep.
So you can get
That's
that
a great thing
easily.
about our website is there's many ways to get there. So yes, that's another good way.
Next question. Will temporary pavement be used for Part B?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please, Danielle.
Okay. So I think what we're planning, it won't be used in the way that it's being used right now. I think, right now we're maintaining one eastbound lane. The idea for construction for Part B is to close off sections and have the contractor kind of work, say, between Southwest 23rd and Southwest 27th, and just close that down. And then once that is complete, we would move to the next section, maybe from Southwest 27th to, Southwest 31st. And so I think we're planning on closing in sections and constructing in sections rather than trying to maintain this constant flow of traffic all the way from Coddington to the west city limits.
Great. Next question. What is the point of the right turn only off Timber Ridge Road?
That's just, go ahead, Thomas.
No, I was going to look, this is Project B, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Timber Ridge is between Southwest 36th and Southwest 31st.
So do you have an answer?
It's part of the access management in which, we want to reduce, left turns to every quarter mile. And so with the location of Timber Ridge kind of lining up between the major access points to those neighborhoods, it just kind of falls too close to the adjacent roundabouts.
Next question is kind of answered, Thomas, during your presentation, but will there be sidewalks added to accommodate the bus routes further west of Coddington?
Yes.
Next question. Is there a top view of where the multi-use trail would be?
Yeah, if you go to that West A website that we talked about, and you click onto the maps.
Okay. All right.
So Project A, it says Project A there, and then there's a little map underneath that, Liz.
Thank you. Okay.
And you're gonna have to probably zoom in. But if you look in there, there's a legend on the lower right, but you can kind of see, I call it an orange color. My wife tells me I don't know how to tell my colors, but if you zoom into that location along there, you can see the trail if you zoom in close enough.
So we would
So that's where you can get the top view of it.
Great.
And the multi-use trail is basically the sidewalk on the south side of West A, from Southwest 36th to Southwest 27th. It's 10 feet wide. And then from Southwest 27th east to the overpass, it's 8 feet wide. But it's not a separate trail on the street, or we're not painting, bike lanes. It's just a wider, it'll appear like a wider sidewalk, and it's designated through Parks and Rec then as a multi-use trail.
And I would encourage everyone after this to really take a look at the West A website and look at all of the maps. Hopefully all the information is there. Next question is, are the electrical lines to the north of West A going to be buried?
That's a big question. The electrical lines on the north side of West A, starting at Southwest 17th, and then further west, are being buried. So they're currently burying from Southwest 17th through Coddington, and that will continue on all the way out to Southwest 40th.
A question.
I hope that answered the question, I think.
It sounds like part of them are going to be buried, others
Yeah.
may not be buried.
Right.
And this is a question, is a retaining wall still an option with our property at 1633 West A?
I'm going to suggest that maybe we get with Randy and Diane on a separate to take a look at that issue. I'm not prepared to, I guess, do designing right now in a webinar.
If this individual wants to contact someone, who should they contact, Thomas?
I'm going to say, Galen, I'm sorry to do this to you on the spot, but if at the bottom of the West A website, there's a contact us for
Yes.
Galen, the construction project manager. So if you could email Galen with your contact information, we'll sure talk to you about your situation and whether that's an option or whether it's not.
And I would suggest that to everyone, if on questions that are very specific to your property, if you want to go to the website and go to the contact us, and we can talk to you offline on those very specific issues. Next question. You showed a turnout for bus service on Coddington. Are there any turnouts on the West project, the B project, or will traffic on that stretch of A be stopped by buses?
Designer,
Yeah,
project manager.
I think the answer is no. And I would review the bus stop locations, but I am hesitant to say that there are other bus stop locations directly on West A. And I'm sure as soon as I say that, somebody's going to prove me wrong. But I think we do have accommodations for those bus pads along some of the side streets. I'm not sure. I know we don't have any turnouts, but we would provide a bus pad.
Okay. This one I think we've answered, but if there's anything else you want to add, can you share where the 4th roundabout on the B project will be placed? But I think we've shown that during the presentation, right?
I hope so. It was, in case you weren't sure, it's the one at Southwest 36.
Okay. And we talked about this. How does the city of Lincoln plan on compensating homeowners for the ground? And again, that goes back for the easements and the process that Thomas had talked about earlier is the process that we go through to do that. And that involves a number of departments, urban development, the law department, and they assist with those types of negotiations and process. So the next question, I guess, is more of a comment. I think as long as people have been waiting for this project, people would be okay with projects starting in 2021. We have some people that agree with that. Let's see. Next question then. What do you envision how traffic will flow during the winter on West A between Southwest 14th and Coddington?
I think for the most part, maybe I should let Galen. Maybe I'll just, let Galen talk if he'd like to, or maybe he's just going to nod. Isn't it? It's the eastbound flow, right? You're muted, Galen, if you're trying to talk.
Yes, that's correct. It'll be like that until spring.
Okay, thank you. And this is in the same area, but a little off topic. And let's see, it says, are improvements to either Southwest 40th or West Van Dorn streets anywhere on the city's radar?
So Southwest 40th, I can answer. Right now, we are stopping at our city limits. We have talked with the county engineer. They are, at this point, unable to have funding to extend the project. But we're in the process, and let me put a plug in for the long-range transportation planning process that's going on right now, L-Plan 2050. There's going to be opportunities to put input like that into our next long-range transportation plan and help us prioritize where the next set of improvements should be made looking forward in this. But right now, since that's outside of the city limits, we have talked about it, we have looked at it, but it's just out of our jurisdiction right now. Improvements to West Van Dorn, that's a long stretch. Some of it's in the city, some of it's in the county. So I guess I would also say, if that's something of interest to you, I'd encourage you to participate in that long-range transportation planning process as we evaluate the city system, the transportation system, and prioritize the next sets of projects.
All right, and I'll take this next one. What happens to wells on acreages that will now be part of the new right-of-way or easements? Those are part of the negotiations that go on with the property acquisition and the easement discussions. So that should be, usually those are taken up and addressed at that time. Each situation is different. So next question is, there will not be two-way traffic from Coddington East on the north side while working on the south lane?
That's correct.
Are the traffic analysis conducted at the beginning of this project? Okay, are the traffic analysis conducted at the beginning of this project available for public view? I'm curious about how it was decided that roundabouts were the safest and most effective option. And I think we could just we've talked about roundabouts a little bit. I would really encourage you to go to the roundabout webpage, and that really does have the studies and the information there that does support and have the data to show that those are the safest methods. So is West A going to be widened to 3 or 4 lanes from west of Coddington to Southwest 36?
No, it will still be 1 lane in each direction.
However, it should flow better than it does now by having that center median. Also, it will have the roundabouts that'll help keep a smoother speed flow through there. So while it's not widening, sometimes people equate with more lanes to better traffic flow. We think what we are doing with having separated lanes that aren't head-to-head and the roundabouts that traffic flow, we don't think it. We know, based on our experience in other projects, we know that this is going to work good. We have that example on Yankee Hill.
Did the project contract include timeline incentives, early completion bonus, or late completion penalties? If not, why not? If so, are they being held to them with COVID?
So yeah, there are penalties in this contract. We do that in all of our contracts. You know, if there are things that are outside of the contractor's control, things that he cannot control, then we talk with them. We find out how it affected them, and if we think it's fair, we do give them extra time. And in this case, with COVID, like the 2 weeks that they had to send their crews off, they'll get extension for that.
And I'll step back into my former life, and as a recovering attorney, will tell you that often in contracts, there's clauses called force majeure, and it's basically kind of those acts of God that, as Thomas said, are outside their control. And so that those are standard in every contract, and that a COVID-19, a pandemic type situation typically falls in those. Next question, do you have an alternative route for residents on West A Street, west of Coddington, eastbound to downtown, and also to Coddington Market?
Well, depending where you're at, there's different things that you can utilize. You know, there's certainly if you're wanting to get downtown, you can go over to Southwest 40th. You can use that that bridge over the railroad tracks now, and you know, if you want to, depending where you want to go, you can get to the interstate. You can go down West O as places that you can utilize to get downtown. If you're living in that neighborhood and you need to get the Russes, you can, you know, go down to West Van Dorn and come up Coddington and through the improvements that we made at Coddington and West Van Dorn. You know, if you're closer to Russ's Market, I assume you would use some of the similar streets that you use now, which are through the neighborhoods.
What changes have you made to your initial plans based on community feedback? What changes have been requested that just can't be possible?
I would say, well, we've worked with some of the sidewalks, and, you know, making sure we've got the sidewalk access like people wanted. We took their feedback on the drainage areas, and we looked at those and made sure we had inlets and area inlets and places where drainage was a problem. We've heard a lot about the drainage out on West Washington, east of Russ's, and just before the week-long rains that we had last month, we were able to add to the original project, but grade a ditch basically from West Washington out to the drainage out on West A. So we've been able to add some of those things. And then as we meet with property owners, we find out, you know, what they want differently, you know, if they wanted their driveway constructed a little bit differently. And we've made some of those adjustments during the right-of-way process to the plans before they get constructed.
I think probably the change that I just haven't been able to accommodate is get this done in about 6 weeks. You know, or even 2 weeks when somebody was on vacation, they were hoping, you know, everything could happen for them. I'm afraid that one's just been, you know, something that we haven't been able to accommodate is doing this like carpet. You know, sometimes I think we all hope it will go like carpet. You know, I went away, carpet came out, carpet came in, and it was all better when I came home from work that day. And unfortunately, that's just one thing we can't accommodate.
Will any construction for the proposed housing development north of A Street be delayed until Project B is complete?
That'll be up to the private developer, and I think, based on the one visit I had with them, that, you know, they're gonna find it difficult to sell lots if the streets tore up, and it won't look very attractive. So I think they are probably going to be doing their construction work and getting their utilities in and their streets in, so that hopefully as we've getting finished up, they're able to start digging basements. I think that would be what they're shooting for. But I don't think we're going to tell a private developer, get into the business of telling them they can't build houses out here.
We lost some big, beautiful trees along West A, west of Coddington. Are there any plans for replacement of these trees or other beautification efforts?
Were those trees in the right of way or outside? I'm not sure that every tree, the trees that are outside of the right of way, the private property owner was compensated in some shape or form for that. So that'll be up to them to do that. But we do not have a tree replanting program that's funded right now with some of the budget cuts that we've had to make with parks.
What is the width of the bikeway from Coddington East?
8 feet. So your standard sidewalk on an arterial is 5 feet. And so from Southwest 27th East, we've made it 8 feet. And then to the west, it's 10 feet.
Let's see. Okay, we did have someone who thankfully was able to find out that there are currently 2 stops on West A route, directly on West A.
Yes, I saw Mark busted me on that.
Well, the bottom line is we're working with StarTran. You know, they're the operators of the system, and that's who we'd be working with as to the best way to accommodate their service. And maybe those routes, those stops are coming off of West A and going on to a side street now, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's a number of changes, and StarTran does annually include some bus stop improvements. So that may be possible down the road through StarTran. Do you see these improvements increasing home values in the area? I think this is kind of out of our wheelhouse and expertise, but I think anytime that we can improve the area and make new improvements there, it doesn't necessarily hurt those around there. Let's see. Based on area resident feedback, will you continue moving Project B back into 2021? I think, well, the feedback that we had so far and the scheduling that we have, I don't know that we would be making any changes, but we'll keep everyone posted on the timeline and any changes that do come about. We have a roundabout lover here. I like to see all of them out there. And the one last question about bike path. The bike path is on the south side of A Street, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And we do have a couple individuals on here. Thank you all very much for your time, and thank you for putting this together. That's all of the questions I have in the chat session. I do have just a couple quick more that were emailed in. The first question, which we've kind of answered, but just want to make sure we don't have anything else to add. Approximately when will improvements begin near the west end of the Project B? And this is kind of 8 areas around Southwest 36th and Southwest 40th.
Yeah, I think I can answer that just because it's still under design. You know, I kind of mentioned that we would be moving in sections, and I think I would promote that we start, you know, at Southwest 23rd and we work our way west, and then we keep working our way west. So I would, you know, based off the design, I would say the end of 2022. Now, I'm not necessarily able to stop the contractor if he wants to construct it backwards. But tentatively, we would propose that he works from east to west, and that would be near the end of 2022.
Okay, great. Are the delays caused by K2 construction? I think we kind of covered what some of the delays were caused by, but I think we can say that K2 has been meeting all of our contractual requirements and is performing as we expected. The next question, there's a bus stop. Okay, and this one, there is a bus stop at Northwest 30th Street on West A, so is there going to be a bus turnout? And the ones on West A, there will not be a turnout. Is that correct, Danielle?
Not at this time. Again, we're still finalizing those, but not at this time.
All right, and this one, it looks like we've already answered to. The bike path is on the south side of A Street, and that is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. And then what is the timeline on the retaining wall on the north side of West A from Coddington going west?
And Galen, you answering that?
Oh, you're on mute.
I think that's going to end up being one of the last things that gets done. So I don't foresee that getting accomplished until the end of the summer of 2021. That's my guess is that it won't be until the end of next summer.
And I do want to remind everyone, obviously, we do live in Nebraska and the weather here is unpredictable. And kind of as Thomas highlighted, there's a number of unexpected things that we do everything that we can to stay on time and prevent these kind of unexpected setbacks, but things do happen. So we do appreciate everyone's patience and understanding, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope you found this informative and helpful. We want to continue to improve these the communication on large projects like this, and especially this one as we continue through the next couple years on this. So we will continue to update you with the information, as well as schedule those 2 other probably virtual meetings in the next few months. And I hope everyone has a fabulous evening. Stay healthy. And if you have any questions, feel free to email them to Erica Hill, and we will try and coordinate those responses as promptly as possible. So thank you all and have a great evening.